Good afternoon, students. Welcome back to another session of social sciences classes with me, Ms. Sangeeta Sharma. Last class we started on the topic resources, so I'll be continuing with the same today. Now, before I go with the topic for today, let's just do a recap of what we did last class. We started on the topic resources, that is Unit 2, Chapter 5, Geography portion, Class 10, Social Science. Resources, we did last class, we did a recap of what we did last class for those of you who are joining for the first time also. Resources, what are resources? Last time we did, in my last class, I explained to you that all those things which are around us, which are useful for us, which we need necessary and useful for us are resources. All natural and man-made things that satisfies our wants and fulfills our needs are also known as resources. So, some of the natural things around us like land, water, air, also some man-made things, road, bridges, houses, all those are man-made things, even machines I told you. So, those are we did about what was resources. Then we also did about the interdependent relationship between human, nature and technology. Things are there in the environment, but unless we have the technology, human beings use this technology to convert these resources into useful product. Those things that are there in the nature cannot be called as resource. So, there might be so many things in nature, but unless you put it to test or unless you are able to use it, that is not a resource. So, how do we test? We did that, the usage, the test is the usage. If you are able to use a particular thing that is there in nature, that is a resource, we did that. Now, there were two definitions of resources also. First one was, earlier it was defined, resources was defined as a gift of nature, endowed by nature, gift of nature, but recently resources is regarded as or is termed as the function of human activities. Functions of human activities because human beings are very important part of the resource. Okay? So, human beings are very important component or part of human resource development, and because of that human being, there is an interdependent relationship between nature, human and technology, and so human beings are called human resource. So, I also was telling you that all of you are also in the process of becoming human resource. That last class we did about that also is just a recap. So, we also did about the classification of resources, that is natural and human resources or man-made resources, and natural resources can be divided into renewable and non-renewable. Renewable again into continuous or flow like wind and water, that is continuous, and biological, that is natural vegetation, forest and wildlife. Then human resource as structures and institutions, and also the quality and quantity of the resources that are developed. So, classification of resources and non-renewable resources, there are two, one that is recyclable and the other that is non-recyclable, recyclable metal and non-recyclable fossil fuel, we did that. Now, today's topic is types of resources. Actually, in the last class, we did 3 points on types of resources and the 4th point was left incomplete. So, today's topic is types of resources. So, we can classify resources on the basis of point 1, origin. I have already done this with you. On the basis of exhaustibility, on the basis of ownership, and fourthly, on the basis of level or state of development. And in my last class, I have already discussed on types of resources, that is one, origin. Okay. So today our topic is continuation of the topic from last time, that is types of resources on the basis of first origin. On the basis of origin, resources can be classified into biotic and abiotic. Biotic is the living or having life. Last class I did it, I will not go into detail. Abiotic, that is biotic and abiotic. Abiotic means composed of non-living things, rocks, materials, minerals, sorry, not materials, minerals. On the basis of exhaustibility, I was giving you the example, if you remember, that when we are very tired, we say that we are exhausted. Why? Because our energy level has gone down. So exhaustible means it's getting down. The quality is getting down, or it's getting decreased, or it is getting finished up. So exhaustibility. So resources on the basis of exhaustibility, those resources which can be renewed and reproduced, renewable resources, and non-renewable resources. Those resources, once it is used up, it cannot be renewed easily, it cannot be reproduced easily. It will take a long period of time, millions of years to form, a long period of geological time to form, and so renewable and non-renewable. Then the third one, ownership, as the word ownership says, ownership means who owns it, whose is it, who is the owner. Ownership means on the basis of ownership, resources can be classified as individual, community, national and international. So on the basis of ownership, individual resources are those resources which are owned by individual persons, your house, car, plot of land, all those are individual property, individual resources. Then we have second, community resources, playground, parks, public wells. These are meant for the benefit of the entire community. These resources are accessible to all in the community. So those are community owned resources. And national owned property, there are all the things that are there in a nation, water, minerals, land, soil, forest belongs to the nation. So national property. So ownership, to whom it belongs to the nation. So on the basis of ownership, first we have individual resources. Those are resources that belongs to individual person. Then we have community resources that belongs to the whole community. It is used for the benefit of the whole community. All the members of the community can access it and use it. Then we have national property, that national resources, those are meant, this belongs to the nation, and the nation has the right to use it. No individual persons can claim over it. Then there are certain resources which belongs to the international institutions. I was telling you that in the ocean, okay, beyond 200 kilometers of the ocean, okay, economic zone, a country cannot claim or cannot go and mine on the ocean bed, because has to take permission from the international institutions. Those are international resources on the basis of ownership. Up to there, this we had done last time. Today's topic, we start from here, level of state of development. On the basis of level of state of development, we first have potential resources. Potential resources. Potential means, when do we say that we have potential? Sometimes a teacher tells you, you have potential, but you are not working to your full potential. You can do well, but you are not doing well. Why? You are not putting your 100% potential. That word should bring ring that bell. Okay, potential means there is scope. Okay, there is scope. The resources are there, but these resources have not been used. Reason can be many. Okay, the country has resources, maybe having mineral resources, but those resources are not being exploited fully. Why? Because there may be many reasons. The country might not be having the technology, and availing or buying the technology from other place or other country might be too expensive, and the country at present might not be in a position to buy that technology and use it. Or sometimes it happens that the amount of resources that is there, the amount of resources when compared, okay, the price or the technology of exploiting it becomes more. So it does not become economically feasible, we call it. It's not practicable because you'd be spending more and you'll not be benefiting much, and so it is kept on hold. So potential resources. So for example, I will give you an example. In the western side of India, like Gujarat and Rajasthan and Gujarat, hot places, dry hot places, there is strong potential, okay, huge potential for wind and solar energy, but to some extent it has been developed, but it has not been fully developed, okay. So maybe technology, India has not been able to develop a technology that can quickly, okay, or that can very easily and efficiently or cheaply use those resources and put it to use, but in future there is a scope that we can put it to use. So that is potential resources. Second one is on the basis of level or state of development. The second one is developed resources. But developed resources are those resources which have been fully developed, okay, taking into consideration the most feasible economic means have been used, and it has been fully developed. Fully developed means where these resources are there, which part of the country these resources are there, how much of resources is there. It has been surveyed, it has been assessed, its economic value has been calculated. So developed resources, this has already been developed, okay. So these are resources which has already been mapped, which has already been surveyed, assessed, calculated, its economic value being calculated. So these are developed resources. Then third one, after this we have potential resources, developed resources, then we have stock. Now there are certain resources in nature which we know of, okay, but technology is not there. For example, hydrogen and oxygen is a compound. When it gets mixed, it produces water, but so far in the whole world there is not a technology which can convert, okay, these compound of hydrogen and water into drinkable water or water that can be consumed by a human being. And so maybe in the future, if this technique comes or technology is developed, then this resource would be utilized or this will be used. Then stock. Then last one is reserve. So we can say that for these, we know that there are certain resources in nature which can be used for the benefits of human being, but as of now there is no technology, and because of that it is remaining as a stock. Number 4 is reserve. Reserve means these are resources that are there in the country, resources that we know about, okay, and there is technology also, but because of economical reasons or because of other reasons, to some extent it has been used, but in the future it can be used. For example, I'll give you an example of water resources. We have lots of water resources in India, but in certain parts of the country, these water resources has been very beneficially converted into electrical energy and we are using it, but in certain regions we are not able to do it, so it is still remaining as a reserve. So we have the technology, we can do it also, but it is not being done. That is reserve. So types of resources, just a recap again, types of resources on the basis of origin, origin as biotic and abiotic, exhaustibility as renewable and non-renewable, on the basis of ownership as private, community, national and international, on the basis of state of development as potential resources, developed resources, stock and reserve, okay. So the next topic that I will be moving on is about conservation of resources. Why conservation? What is the need of conservation? We will see. Now the next topic that I will be discussing with you is conservation of resources. I will write in short. Resources. Why? Now we know resources first, we'll come to here resources and then we'll come to conservation, okay. Resources are very important for sustenance, okay, maintaining life on earth as well as for the development of the country. Resources are very important. Resources, all those things that we have seen, I have given you the definition about. Resources are very necessary for sustaining life as well, maintaining life on this earth as well as for the development of the country. But because of too much exploitation of resources, overuse of resources and unplanned use of resources, okay, resources are getting depleted. Depleted means its quality, quantity and quality is getting decreased. Okay, so it's getting decreased. So we need to have conservation. So there is a need for conservation. So conservation of resources. Resources are there. Resources are necessary for maintenance of life on this earth as well as for development, but resources, because of overexploitation and too much use, unplanned use, resources are getting depleted. Its quality as well as its quantity, it's going down, so we need to take care of it. And so conservation becomes important. So what is conservation? Okay, conservation, we can define it as, so what is conservation? The protection, preservation, and management. So conservation means protection, preservation, and also management of resources. We can also say efficiently utilizing the resources that are there. Efficiently means without wastage. Also, judicially using in a planned manner so that we have enough, keeping in mind the future prospect also, so that we do not use up everything. We leave something for the future also. So conservation means protection, preservation, and management of resources. It also means efficient use of resources and judicious and planned use of resources, keeping in mind the future prospect of availability of resources. So conservation of resources becomes important. That answers why. So we club together first resources, very necessary for maintenance and sustenance of life on this earth as well as for development. But these resources, the quality and quantity of resources are getting depleted, and therefore we need to conserve and protect and manage the resources. How? By utilizing it efficiently and in a planned manner and also judiciously. Now, conservation of resources, so people sometimes, okay, we confuse ourselves when we say that judiciously using it, resources are getting depleted, efficiently use it, cut down the use of resources. Many a time we confuse it with, does it mean that we cannot use the resources? No, it does not mean that. Conservation does not prohibit the use of resources. We can use the resources. Resources are there for our use, but we have to use it judiciously, efficiently, and in a planned manner. That is what conservation of resources is about. Then the next topic, just now we have seen about conservation of resources, why we need to conserve resources. Now, resource planning. What is resource planning? Okay, planning is the technique of balanced utilization of resources, is called resource planning. So what is resource planning? Resource planning is the technique of balanced utilization of resources. So it's a technique So resource planning. Resource planning is a technique of balanced utilization of resources. Now, why do we need to have a technique or a technology? A technique means a method. Why do we need to have a method or a technique of have balanced utilization of resources? What is the need? Because resources are very unevenly distributed in the country, okay, or in the world. There are some countries which are very rich in certain resources but do not have other resources at all. So resources are very unevenly distributed. Unevenly means it is not fairly distributed. Some has more, some has less, some does not have at all. And so unevenly distributed, and also resources are very limited in the world, and because of that we need a technique to of balanced utilization of resources. And also overuse and exploitation of resources has created many problems, socio-economic problems, problems in the society. When we say socio, it leads to society, okay, dealing with human beings and society. When we say economic, we talk about financial, money, okay, economically, and also environmental problems. So overutilization and overexploitation of resources has brought about so many bad effects in the society. It has affected the society economically, socially, as well as environmentally, and because of that also resource planning becomes important. So now resource planning in India. India is a diverse country, and so in the matter of resources also there is diversity. Okay, diversity in availability of resources. There are certain regions, okay, which is very rich in certain resources but deficient in other resources. Rich in some resources but lacking in some other resources. Then there are certain regions of India which are self-sufficient. Then there are other regions of India where there is acute shortage of resources. So we have three categories, okay. Resource planning in India, three categories. That is, there is diversity in the availability of resources all over India. There are some regions in India which are rich in some resources but deficient in some other resources. That is the first category. Rich in some resources but lacking in some other resources, deficient in resources. Second, there are some regions of India which are completely self-sufficient. They don't depend on other regions. Then there are other regions of India which have acute shortage of many resources, and because of that resource planning becomes important. We have to balance, so those places which has sufficient, we have to bring to those places where there is acute shortage. So balance needs to be maintained so that all regions of the country or all the places are developed equally, uniformly. Otherwise only certain portions of India, in only certain portions of India resources will be available, those places will be developed, and there will be certain regions of India which will be backward, which will be lagging behind in so many things. So resource planning becomes important as a result. So topic wise, this is the last topic that we will be doing. I want to do a recap. So with some question where I want to review the class that I took last class and this class. We will just review with some questions, and then you can find, if you have been copying down what I have been explaining to you and writing on the blackboard, then all the answers you will find it there also. And these questions you will see in the textbooks also as MCQ questions, as VSA questions. So this will also help you. These questions we have done in this previous class and this class. So the first question is on resource, basing on resource, which is a human-made resource. I'm giving you for examples: petroleum, fossil fuel, forest, machine. Okay, you choose. And you can see the text, and that is the first question. Second one, what is resource? I explained two different ways of resources, or two definitions of resources I gave you. So what is resource? Okay, that is the answer to that. Then give one example of biotic. biotic and abiotic resources, that is from the types of resources that we did. On the basis of origin, we had biotic and abiotic resources. So give me one example of biotic resource and abiotic resource. Now the next question is, what are renewable resources? I'll give you the answer to this. Renewable resources are those resources which can be reproduced or renewed. Then next one, what are potential resources? Potential resources are those resources which has the potential to be developed in the future, but as of now, we are holding it. Its use has been postponed for the time being, that is potential resources. Then classification of resources on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership, who owns it? Private, individuals, community, national and international, that is the answer. Then the last one, what is resource planning? We just did. Resource planning is a technique of balanced utilization of resources. Why is it important? Why is it important? 3 points: because resources are unevenly distributed, it is limited all over the world, and the third point is overexploitation or overuse of resources in an unplanned manner has led to its depletion both in quantity as well as quality, and because of that, resource planning becomes important. I hope I have been able to make you understand a little bit on resources. Next class, I will be continuing with the same chapter, but on the topic land resources and water resources in the next class. So I hope you will be here and will join me again. I'm looking forward to have another interesting session with you. Thank you.